Testing.
There you go. Got a call shot.
The Google keys.
Got any notions or anything?
Well, we've got notions. I had a meeting with a student this week. Talk about what's wrong with the labor unions. Gave a different twist on things in our discussions, which was kind of fun to do and interesting.
Well,
Thinking about I heard an editorial this week. It turns out it was by a truck driver in New England talking about two-income families and how our whole society is organized in a way that destroys family life in some respects. And it got me to thinking about, family values and whatnot. And then I'm at Hugh March's campaign, and his campaign is going to be kind of protection of children and whatnot for his judge race. Thinking family values there, and then, who's really destroying family values in our society? It seems like it's a system that's designed to divide the family. Everybody I know has two wage earners. Sometimes they work different shifts. They see each other on the weekends. Kids today cook their own dinners. And, stuff we've talked about before in terms of the kind of production pressures. And then the question I was thinking about this morning was, you lived 17 years or so of your life commuting back and forth from Chicago 3-4 days a week. And have talked a little bit about what you do on the weekends to make up for what you don't do during the week. And it's I think everybody has those kind of compromises in their lives, forced on us and taken on by us because we live in this kind of society. I don't know if that's a topic that's you're interested in discussing this morning, but it's one that I thought we could start with.
Well, it's all integrated.
Personal from you is kind of, how do you feel about the compromises you made in your own life to that kind of thing, and how does it affect?
Well, there's a lot of little themes there that I'll integrate, and I'll just bounce a little for a moment so I can focus.
And of course, you may have some other things you're interested in talking about.
No, that's fine. That system that destroys the family, probably the biggest thing that it destroys is the individual. That comes before the family. Then the next question is, what are we talking about? What kind of system? And right now, I'll just say it's the worship of things we've talked about, the unquestioning of higher standard of living, unquestioning of productivity, unquestioning of progress, comfort, security, and happiness. That gives us the destruction of the individual, and later on the destruction of the family. The two go together.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me that was his truck driver's point of view. Is that I mean, he was not unsophisticated about it. It was the fact that you want more. I mean, the fact that we as a society demand more for ourselves pushes us to this. Are you saying, are we really going in the right direction?
And what it means to be an individual is these are just, again, just quick paintbrushes, is one who challenges society. That's liberal arts. That's what it means to be an individual. One who questions, one who says no, and in other words, one who is a revolutionary. Then the next thing is, well, aren't there revolutions being made all over the place since aren't we got a lot of individuals out there? No, fighting against dead horses is not revolutionary. The Marxist class struggle, all that, and the labor unions are versus management and the big bosses is a bunch of bullshit. Absolute bullshit. It will not change anything. It might get you a few cents more an hour, but it won't change anything. It's not revolutionary. Now the one thing that is not only constant, but growing stronger every day because it's not questioned, really questioned. What we hear in politics is absolute bullshit on this. And that is the growth and power of the state and the I don't have good words. I know what I want to say, but the undiminishing or something like that of the power of technology. Technology in the state is just giving money to the states to handle Medicare. That is Daddy's got more power than he had before when he gives his kids, I'm giving you this when you go to school. You do what you want with it. Bullshit. But the growth and power of the state and technological progress are not tampered with. People still, more than ever, call on the state to solve their problems. And the hope of those solutions is always high tech if you examine every single thing that comes out. So all anything that does not question those two things is not revolutionary. It's a negative way to put it. When you talk about labor, until the big bosses and the laborer can see that they both are being destroyed as individuals by the state and high tech. They both have something to strike against in common. They need to get their act together. I repeat, fighting dead horses is more than a waste of time. Destroys your thinking. No, that doesn't sound very revolutionary in terms of the masses, but the masses are wrong. To destroy the power of consumption and standard of living in one's life is the starting point. I mean, first one would have to be aware of what we're really up against, and secondly, how do I fit in it? That's just the beginning of it. You know, I just, this thing with Edith, the Guatemalan mother who just gave birth, she got 2 other kids, can't speak English. She tests positively for TB. Her man left him with venereal disease that's being taken care of. That's confidential. That's being taken care of, both the baby and the mother, with antibiotics. She's of the traditional, worldwide, and still super strong South American mode of never striking at the man. He is God, which really helps a lot. I've laid one little law down. I don't like laying law downs, but I am not supporting that guy that's going to find a home here, sitting there waiting for him where he can really operate. You know?
Who's this?
That's if a man in Guatemala comes back, and so you're going to have to choose between that house and that support or that man. Goodbye, you know. But what I'm really getting at is something I mentioned at the Project Neighbors meeting. We have to look at things realistically. And when I look at her situation realistically and the children, Republicans and Democrats can go to hell. The answers of more productivity, better hourly wages mean nothing. Realistically, unless she goes back to Guatemala or marries a millionaire, which is not very real. Realistically, she's needed with those children for 5 years at home, at least. Realistically, there ain't no job out there for her. Other than cleaning somebody's garbage. And it'll take forever to get a GED, which doesn't mean shit. And so realistically, I'm looking at myself. She is going to have to be supported. But that's almost negative to me. I think she's can trigger in some of us a wake up. Wake up. She's half the world out there. All this workfare, and you got to work in 2 years if you get welfare. All that's stupid. There's no jobs out there. Who's going to pay for it? And so realistically, I have no answers to it, except I have laid to a handful of you, and with your help, a way in which, without too much damage to anybody, we can get her through 3 years maybe. I'll rent half the house for $250. Payments. I got to work out some plan on NIPSCO and all that crap. She has got no card. She will not get welfare. She will get help for the children and get some food stamps, but she won't get a nickel. Everything she gets is going to be needed for the day-to-day running of the kids. that's being worked on. So, translated, she has to be subsidized to the tune of 200 to 250 a month for at least 3 years. Translated, that's doable. But just being doable is not enough for me. First of all, 3 years goes, and then what? The reality of making that happen is that a handful of people will be gathering around her, not conscious enough. That's my negative. Gathering around her and given a few minutes of time and money to make it possible. That's sort of charity. And that's not what I'm aiming for. The economic results are not any different what I'm getting into now. Because economics dare not be for me and for change. If you're into economic results, you're not going to say no to standard of living, security. That's the world's definition of revolution. I want what's mine, economically.
Well, and after all, she's here
She's here.
for those reasons.
She's here for those reasons. And I don't look to the third world at this point. First of all, I'm positive in my mind, as I've said many times, change can come only from the first world.
No, I don't look to the third world for leadership on giving up the desire for goods and more stuff. They haven't been there yet.
In which not only the only thing they've ever heard and seen in their life is that you're nothing unless you have something. I mean, that's puts 24 hours a day in their lives, So, right, I agree with you. And I can't ever quite make it fit perfectly, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. When Chacha Jimenez, the leader of in Chicago, called me, and we got together. He knew I was sending little teams around the world. Young Lutherans from Zion Lutheran Church, Iowa. And he says, Walt, I'm going to make it possible for you to send your team, a team of your folks. I'll give them a place to live with families in Puerto Rico and feed them. Would you send a team there? Well, we would have had he not gotten arrested the next day. I said, why don't we send a team of Hispanics there? They will not listen to anybody but gringos coming there to say that the streets are not paved with gold. What we're talking about. No, she believed that the United States is the only way out. But what I'm getting at is revolution, which is the word for change, and has to be with our force. I'd like us to become, the handful of us, not a board, but different folks become more aware, more conscious of what we're doing ourselves, and why. It's a drop in the bucket, but we have to start somewhere. Contact Neighbors is really built on that. I think of Mary Breland She hasn't paid a nickel in 2 years for where she lives. And not many people know that. Not that the world should know that, but I mean, realistically, there's no way she can hold a job right now. There's no way she should. You know, we work out things for a psychic that helps a lot of people with food delivery and stuff like that. Here she's got a car. She hasn't worked 1 second. She's got a car and free house. What the hell's going on here? She also has her kids still with her. And they're a community. I mean, the Lidkeys are part of that community that are helping her raise Calvin. Johanna Speckert is just excited and thrilled with working with 3 times a week with Stephanie. She sees an incredible improvement. I mean, a lot more of these things, you know. I had Archie Miller over yesterday who designs the cheapest kitchen he designs is $10,000 and renovation. And he measured everything. Mary's kitchen is a dump. And dark, rusty tin counter of the sink.
Yeah, no, I've been there.
He said, "Walt, you got $10,000?" No, I might get 900. Well, we'll really try to work something out. I don't know where I'm getting the 900, but that's pretty cheap considering.
Well, the other thing, you know, I mean, I noticed yesterday, Patty and I were walking around, and Beth comes back from the dunes with 2 of Mary's kids and her own kids.
I was just gonna say, and all the time.
And
In spite of the fact that Chick was there last night. I'm just rubbing that in.
he was there working yesterday.
Or so.
He was there working yesterday. Heard the hammer go.
Okay.
I didn't see him. I heard him outside hammer. But that, you know, I mean, Beth is really a neighbor to her.
Oh, without a question. This is what I'm talking about. No.
And it's not a one-way relationship.
Uh-huh.
It's not Beth is doing for Mary all the time. Mary does for Beth.
And those kids are gold for Olivia and Suzanne.
Yeah.
I mean, in this modern world and in Valparaiso, they have color all the time.
They have an opportunity
Yeah.
to know kids of color in the same way that Beth did.
Yeah. Now, what I'm getting at here is I don't know. See, in each of these 2 cases, including the Blakes and Alexanders, in these cases, there's a wraparound. The consciousness of what we're doing and why is not been verbalized very much, certainly with each other, you know. And whether it should be or not, I'm not sure. All I know is that the Marys and the Ediths are not going to make it. I hate to use the word make it. First of all, they won't make it in terms of the world. And secondly, I don't want them to make it in terms of the world. I want them to live and not just survive. How do I get Mary and Edith and all of them to be partners with all of us, you know? It's labor and management again. Until labor and bosses come together to see what we're up against, it's whistling Dixie. I constantly try to get that across to them. I am not a landlord. I'm a partner. Constant. And that's going to take a while, because that being somebody by having something is pretty powerful. And but that has to be communicated, at least to those folks. I'm going to have to sit before they move in that house with all of them. And it might be a time for more than myself sitting with all of them. And with an excellent translator there. Who's getting what bathroom and what rooms, and one pays and the other one doesn't pay. Or is that the way we should measure things, I mean, we got to face the reality with them, and are we together on this or not, should Edith go out and hustle a man somewhere? I don't think so. For that reason. So, I mean, these things are facing us very soon.
It's possible in time for people to make a life for themselves. I look at Gladys Allen, and I don't know if she worked when she came here, or if she raised her kids.
Oh, she was never a slacker. Never. She was never a slacker. But she's still not, I mean, other than her, she makes enormous contributions and she gets paid very low, but she gets paid to kids in this community through her job, and then she's a grandmother. But we haven't articulated this consciousness of what we're up against.
And I think that she has paid a tremendous price.
Oh yeah.
For having chosen to live in this community rather than someplace else. I mean, she paid a different price someplace else. But it may not be her kids, but her grandkids who receive the benefit.
Oh, I have no qualms whatsoever about raising a child, a little kid here in the inner city. The odds are just rough that you'll live.
Yeah.
Not be on drugs. They're rough. But that's all survival stuff. I'm talking about heads now. I'm talking about adults consciously knowing that what we're into is global. And when I say global, I mean it's management, bosses, and laborers. That's global. What we're up against needs all of us. A boss's individualism is just as much. I mean, if they didn't have their colored charts in front of them at 7:30 in the morning until 8:30 and making decisions for millions of dollars, they'd be nothing. That's high tech too. People haven't worked out all the statistics, and if you do this or don't do this, and marketing has proven this is going to go, then we better go. Their individualism is gone. Their ability to say no. So I think I'm actually, in a sense, dealing with labor. That's very difficult.
The labor wasn't my focus. But, I understand what you mean.
It'd be very difficult to talk to folks that have a grievance against management this way.
Well, it's not something that in the context of labor management relations that you can find a way to make it relevant to solving any kind of problem they have. It's It's just a different set of thoughts and set of questions.
Yeah, and it's
Not that it's irrelevant to that. It's just that, if you're dealing with somebody on a grievance procedure, this is.
but they should know that this is. I mean, some union folks still sound like this is a revolutionary action and stuff. It's not. It's passe. Demonstrate all you want, but they ain't gonna change anything. The company will fold just as fast one way as another.
Well, the question is, unions are out there. The purpose is to get more of their share, to get their fair share of this ever-increasing pie that's being produced by our wonderful society.
Yeah,
And,
and they should.
the evidence is that the further we go down this road, the less time we have for the things that matter.
That's
in our lives.
that's right. That's right. And,
I want to go back just a second. What are your? You lived a split life for a long time. What do you think about that? What do you?
in the Chicago scene.
You're Chicago, Valpo. Your family was in Valpo. You were in Chicago. Your focus was on Chicago for.
Well, my public focus was.
Well, look, first of all, let me just get set. When did you start the commute scene between Valpo and Chicago? What years were those?
I'd say 66. I'm guessing.
Because wasn't it when you started the commuting scene?
67 now, because Lloyd, no, it would be 67. 67. After the heresy trial, the only thing I could do is come back to Valpo.
Now you were working then doing what in Chicago?
Prince of Peace.
Prince of Peace.
Yeah. And that was ended. And I had a guaranteed job in Valpo. And so I had the responsibility of 4 children and a wife.
What job did you come back to here?
Well, that was negotiated. The job that I was guaranteed would be head football coach. Only the president, with pressure from the national church, didn't want me to have that public job.
Who's the president? OP?
Yeah. And I mentioned this. I acted like I wanted it, but I really wanted to start an urban studies program because I had the model for it.
With the Prince of Peace.
For the Prince of Peace training program.
Yes.
And not only that, I had real stuff. I had apartments, hard to come by apartments, and, which made urban studies, just made it. They would never have been able to do that, And so I had an idea and wherewithal to make it happen. At the same time, across the little park there at Newbury Library, where ACM had its headquarters, they had just decided that they wanted to start an urban studies program. I know why they wanted to study it, because they wanted to keep kids who weren't going to stay in the institution in the institution. That's why they wanted to start. Only they didn't know what to do. They all commuted from Wheaton and Lake Forest.
Who was in ACM at the time?
The colleges?
You said you went to ACM. They had an office.
ACM, Associated College Midwest,
Yeah.
and this is an office that ran their overseas programs.
Okay.
They had 30 overseas programs. And they were going to add an urban studies domestic program.
Uh-huh.
And so they had a nice staff for everything. All lived outside of the city. Now they're being asked to have an urban studies program. Well, they didn't know what to do. And they knew I was doing this kind of stuff and called me in. We talked. I'm going a lot of time here. I go to OP, act like I want to be a football coach when I really wanted to start an urban studies program. Okay? And so I wrote him a letter. Said either I could be a football coach, which is my right, that he had promised me when I left. I knew he didn't want me to do that. Or you can pay my way to get a PhD, which I'd be happy to do. Or we can probe and start on the basis of what we have going for us, a VU Urban Studies program. He jumped at the ladder, and even though I didn't earn my money in terms of numbers, we had six students from Christ College that were willing to do this. And he made me a member of Christ College, which blew the mind of the dean and everybody at Christ College, because I'm not really an academicer. Now I'm a member of Christ College. But Christ College was the only place that in written statements they had freedom to innovate and try things.
This is 1966, 67.
67, I think it was. And
It's interesting.
and the idea then was to give it a try, you know. Well, the six I had were down Mark Schwain, Al Peel. I mean, they're profs at VU now. Top flight folks. Now, I go over to ACM and I said, well, I got an idea. You know, a year
Who else was in the six there?
I can't remember right now.
Okay.
I go over to ACM headquarters a block away. They said, I got
Block away from where?
from where I had an office at 875 North Dearborn. And I said, I have an idea. VU is going to have an urban studies program. Why don't you see if you can get one student from most of the colleges and encourage them to come in for a year to evaluate for themselves and with you the worth of the program. Okay? And that happened. And it happened in a very, very positive way. And so now they're big up. They're real big. We're not talking 6 students, we're talking 100 students, you know. Well, what would you be willing to do this? I'm speaking for VU all the time, you know, as if I had the power and authority. But VU didn't know what was going on. It's always been my case. And would VU be willing to be, we have a brochure, Associated College of the Midwest Urban Studies Program, and then we'll put on the brochure in cooperation with Valparaiso University. That's the way they would buy into it.
VU or ACM?
ACM would buy into it by allowing us to be in cooperation with them, and in return they get our model, and me. I said, I'm sure. Knowing full well that ACM is next to Harvard and Yale, the most prestigious scholastic outfit you can have. That you clean?
Yeah.
We've been trying to get into something like that for years, but they wouldn't take us.
Morning. Good. We won't be too long.
We never were good enough for them, okay?
For ACM?
Yeah, but now we're on their brochures in cooperation with Valparaiso University. So our people loved it, okay? So the next step was, well, we need a faculty. Well, you be a faculty. I'll be director of VU's Kids Urban Studies Program, and I'll be a faculty for ACM. And these are not unimportant little things. How do you pay me? Well, if you go straight ACM, you'll get more money. VU pay nothing. Okay?
Yeah.
But I had pension, and I don't know whether I made a good move or not. I would have been, at the end of 20 years, I've doubled my salary had I gone with ACM. Okay. No, you pay VU, and VU will pay me, and I'll stay on their rolls. Follow that? Which cut my salary, didn't cut my salary, but comparatively speaking, it did. And now the next thing is they had to hire faculty. I said, all I know is get competent people, but they must have a track record of being responsible citizens in the city of Chicago. They've got to be active in the citizenship. They agreed to that. So the next thing is to get a director. And, a couple months later, they call me in and want you to meet the new director. That's Galen Gockel, who I taught at VU. Phys ed. Now he's a sociologist, PhD, University of Chicago, and very active in Lawndale, Inglewood. I think he'd make a good one. So we eventually get our staff.
Were you upset that you weren't hired as a director, or is that something you chose not to?
No, I wasn't hired as director of ACM. I was on their faculty. I was director of VU, Urban Studies Program, which was in cooperation with. I said, no, I wouldn't be allowed to be director. They have to have power and control. They wouldn't have that with me. But back to working it out, we don't know what we're doing too much, but I won't go through that part right now. But one thing was clear, that evenings, I'd say three evenings a week for sure, were as valuable as, I had afternoons wide open because that was internship time, you know. But evenings would be different things, individually, precepts, collectively, whole group, one thing or another. And I'm not going to do this job and commute on a 2-minute basis back and forth, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Go at midnight, come back at 8 in the morning. I'm not going to do that. Now, to get in my head for a moment, you have to understand that I was keenly aware that I was not wanted at VU because of the heresy trial as a football coach, okay? Mm-hmm. And I had nothing else to offer other than I had urban studies. I had that down better than anybody in the city of Chicago as far as how to do it with college students, okay? That's all I had to offer. What am I going to do to support my family? You know, my family's now in Valpo. There's no way I'm going to pull those kids out of those schools in Valpo now and bring them back again to the city.
When had you moved back to Valpo?
Right during the heresy trial, knowing that my job was finished. And school was coming around.
Was that 66, 67?
67, I think.
Uh-huh.
Knowing that school's coming and everything else, I had to make moves. I didn't know what was going to happen. And we had a house, you know. Mm-hmm. So that was a tough decision. And, my hope for a job was Valpo. I might add, a year later, I was offered a job at Santa Cruz at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Flew me out there, everything. Oh man, that must have been nuts not to take that job. What a beautiful place. But
Doing the same kind of thing, or
doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would have moved up had I taken that job. I would have been somebody that might be asked to speak somewhere and stuff like that. But at any rate, I had to decide, go back, which I did, and now once I'm back, now what I do? I've got a job in Chicago, my family's here, and there's no way in hell I can commute.
What was saying he couldn't commute, he could only work out a long weekend.
Ready to go?
Yep.
And so I didn't have much choice. We never did get into choice. I didn't have much choice. Now comes the other aspect of me. Public responsibility is very important to me. Social public, you know what I mean. Now where do I anchor down on that one? The one place I knew well was Cabrini Green, and nobody on the staff, including Lou Palmer, knew Cabrini Green at all. And I had seminars there, advice laws, disciples, you name it. I was meshed with the Holy Trinity, Holy Family Church.
You knew Cabrini Green from POPV?
Yeah, I lived there,
Literally?
literally, not for long, but I lived there about a year.
Where was the family?
Still in Valpo when we were. One summer was at camp. It's sort of like 2 summers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I got my taste real good.
Mm-hmm.
And but I knew Cabrini, I knew the women. That's how come Barbara's here. Everything, That's how come the other women followed me. I knew them all. So my thought, that's why Reiner Foundation gave a little grant to some women. One of the first.
Yeah, that was early on.
Yeah. I mean, that came out of that, I knew those women. I trusted those women. I took a president and a provost from a university in Germany. That was a trip. Oh man, that's worth a story. To meet and greet the 500 building, the Vice Lord building, a whole floor of mothers, and talk with them all morning. It's a highlight of their career. These hot shots. I told you that story, didn't
No.
I? Just real fast. I knew him in Germany, of course, I mean, I negotiated. That's the reason we're still there. Because I had to negotiate with another university because the other one was closing that we had been doing time with. So I got to know the president, Obiglo, real well. And they came over for an award at VU and a little junket. And I'm Reiner now, meaning bad, okay, with the administration, all that happened. And but they wanted to go to Chicago. So here I'm in Chicago during the week. And would I make sure they had a good day and evening in Chicago. I said, sure. So I met him at the train station early in the morning. I had lined all this up, okay, and we didn't go to any museums. Get in a cab, black cab driver, and I gave him the 500 number, green. Hey man, I ain't going there. These two presidents, what the hell's going on here? You know, the cab driver won't even go there. And I said, here's an extra 5, take us right on the edge. So we go, and then I'm met by Maurice, who's the top drug pusher. He was our host. And we go up to the 500 building, which is across the street from Jenner School, the biggest and dumbest in the city of Chicago, and quite a history. A lot of stories there. Wow, that was involved in. And we go to the 7th floor. And to get there, we had to go through no man's land, where you're not supposed to go. Take your life in your own hand. And we passed through vice lord standing at the door. Now we walk to the elevator, which pitch black, stinks of urine, and luckily it slowly moved. We eventually, graffiti everywhere, dark, dingy. We finally get to the apartment. And here are gathered about 9 mothers, coffee, rolls, donuts, and they share their lives all morning. Every one of them had somebody killed, a kid killed, or a kid in jail, or one that charged with killing, or something. But they met mothers who really cared and really fought, you know, and they were highly impressed. But the whole scene was a highlight for them that they have never to this day forgotten. I mean, they still come over, see me. They don't come over to see me, but come over and keep telling me this, what it meant to them. Of course, they go back to Germany, and now they really got something to talk about. If you don't go back and talk about the water tower, nobody wants to listen about that. We walked 5 minutes and ate at the top of the Hancock building. 5 minutes away. This is where we were. Anyhow, Cabrini was my place that I'm going to make a move. I tried. And I had good rapport. I could walk in any disciple building, any vice lord building. They knew who I was. But it's too big. It's too much. I tried for years and years and years, you know. And, lots of stories. But along with that came, and then I come home, I wouldn't leave the premise. I had almost 3 days, it varies, at home, and I just wouldn't leave, you know. I did the family thing all the way, and it wasn't hard. I mean, it was my self-interest. But I was being torn. Valpo on the one hand, Chicago on the other hand. Valpo sitting there with all kinds of stuff. Had every problem that Chicago had in a way. Racism and everything else, DBA thing. And knocking myself out. Now I'm starting to make a move on that. But I didn't know where I belonged, right? And trying to be a citizen of 2 cities was really beginning to get to me. And now I had a problem. How am I going to get out of it? I still got support. Lloyd's not a lawyer or a doctor, you know. how am I gonna do this? And I never really told us, but I had a plan. The only way out of this is to get to Germany. And I knew that I was unacceptable to the administration. Plus, I knew I'd have to speak German. And it took me about 2 to 3 years. I had a lot of time in Chicago, especially in the afternoon. I walked millions of miles. And for over 2 years, I walked everywhere I could with a headset on, speaking German, learning grammar. I mean, I didn't know any German because I knew I was going to apply to Royland. I could bring Lloyd with me. I knew Mark would be graduating, and it would be time where we could make that move. Then that wasn't enough. Learning the language, George, is hard. Really hard.
The older you get, the harder it is.
Oh, man. And so I knew I'd have to have a summer or two in Germany where I practiced it, and really fool around. I did a remarkable thing. Had no money. Never had any money. I went over the first summer without any money. And I got a job picking strawberries. I got a job cleaning small evergreen forests out from bushes and weeds that were smothering them. Worked in a winery. And I also, then the next summer, or 2 summers later, I negotiated with the University of Freiburg. See, if you can get into a university, which is hard, you can get all the free German courses you want. That's part of their program. And I knew I wasn't going to go, but I acted like I wanted a PhD. And because my father had graduated from the University of Freiburg in 1907, because of that, they accepted me. And so I'm now hooked in with the University of Freiburg, nothing to do with classes. I mean, I didn't understand what they were saying. But I had about 5 or 6 hours a day of German classes free in the summer. And I met people and talked gradually. So now I could come back and apply, and part of my resume says that I am at the University of Freiburg working on my PhD in German. I decided rub it in. I mean, it blew their minds to read that, okay? And so I applied for Germany, and the faculty committee voted me in, and the administration had a lot of gimmicks to vote me out. Really freaked me out, because I'd worked long on this. Waited 2 years and applied again. Same thing, the university faculty. Now the administration knew they couldn't quite do the same thing they did before because I'd answered everything. I had to have a syllabus that's acceptable to department heads in political science and theology. Well, thanks to Hal Barron and Jody, I put together one hell of, in both cases, one hell of a syllabus, and Ted Ludwig in theology. Beautiful syllabi. Submitted them, and the administration reluctantly allowed me to go. They almost wrote it off. As a bad 2 years. I followed Mark Riedel, who was the guy that
Who's terrible.
was terrible. He sold the house so Barbara couldn't come after he promised it to us. And he in his good German, in his big shot philosophy made it clear that I'm bullshit coming over in his place to the administration over there. I was treated like, I don't know what a bad name is, but I was ignored. I was ostracized. But that's another story. I overcame that with politics. It's another story. But now Lloyd's over there. We do our 2 years together. And now I tried very hard to get back to VU. And there's so many scenarios here. I also tried to get VU to recognize that they got something good going in ACM. And they better do something fast. Because VBA had led now to Project Neighbors. When I came back, Project Neighbors was my work. And to do my work, I'd have to quit and come home. I couldn't get a job here anyhow. So in a sense, Roylingen was away. Roylingen actually gave me money when I came back, first time I'd saved any in my life, to make the first move on the house. But we had recognized with...
Oh, because of the tax stuff.
Yeah, we didn't pay any income tax.
You pay no income tax. Yeah, so your salary goes up 25%.
And my housing is free, and I'm renting over here, stuff like that. So I save money. And so now I had money to do my work with, to get started. That's how I could buy those dumps, a couple of dumps. But I was saying I'm going to retire. And I could go another 5 years or more if I wanted to. But I couldn't do the work I wanted to do.
So I don't think it's it's not something we could have weren't set to go back to a split life again.
No way. Being with Lloyd for the 2 years, and also I'd begun earlier to see that Valpo's manageable. It's got everything the problem that Chicago has, but there's a chance to do something. It's manageable. I still have no other way to go at it than the way I've been going at it. I don't know any other way to tell the truth. Mine has always been a relationship thing. I mean, way back to Barbara. Why don't you help her get to Park Forest South? That's an integrated community. Why Valpo with Glucose Glen? I only know Valpo. That's where my friends are. That's where I have relationships. I don't know anybody in Park Forest South, so I can't function that way. If she doesn't want to come, fine. So from day one, it's been that relationship kind of thing. But
just a second. This is interesting, but just to go back to the question again, we went from the beginning to the end of that 17-year period pretty quickly. I don't know. I guess it was 17 years. It was 68.
it's a long
It was
time.
67 to... When did you go to Germany?
Went to Germany 82 and 84. Then I went again in 87 to teach for a semester. I got a sabbatical. So I didn't quit probably until 88, 87 maybe. Or 88. I'm guessing.
Okay, so what did you do between the first and second Germany? Were you still urban studies?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I was preparing. The moment I came back from Germany, I knew the kid thing in Valpo. This is a good place to give kids a shot at it, little children. because the track record of VBA children, which was close to 100 kids, just stood out like a sore thumb. All of them broke the welfare cycle all over the place, and all of them had a shot at it.
I'm thinking, the 67 to 82 urban studies time, that's 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess, part of it was that's 15 years of commuting, living 3 or 4 days a week in Chicago, 3 or 4 days a week in Valpo. And
well, the days in Chicago.
now, hang on though. For a lot of that time, Barbara came in '68 to Valpo.
I knew her for 7 or 8 years.
At that time?
Prior to that time.
Prior to that time, yeah. And the whole VBA thing was 68 through.
Until January 82. I mean, it was fading out. You handled the Moyas. There's some big stuff on that. Big stuff on the Moyas prior to the end.
But and that was so. It was not like you were. When you came to Valpo, you were not just sitting in your house. You had stuff. Barbara and all of those women who came 68, 69, 70. There was a lot of interaction.
Oh, after that, it was heavy. After 68, it was very heavy. Solid.
In Valpo.
Valve solid.
Yeah.
Now I'm really getting a split personality. I'm sweating Loie like crazy. She's crying half the time, and God knows what. And here I got to go back to Chicago. It really became more than just where do I belong. It was serious.
Certainly made for interesting experiences for your family.
Okay. And Lloyd,
well, she's part of your family.
From that moment on, she really raised 4 kids. I was really around the clock.
So I
look at the minutes.
How did you relate with your kids at the time? I'm thinking, take it in '68 when Barbara came. Well, not concentrating on the Barbara stuff, but just on the family stuff. What was your own family like? What did you do? What would be a typical week?
Not a lot of time together, but definitely involved. Definitely involved with their ups and downs, on weekends especially, of course. And I can name different points. But usually, Patty was totally involved with her newspaper and getting kicked out of school. Becky was getting kicked out of school and all that. Beth wasn't sleeping. I'd go up and read the Bible to her to see if that would put her to sleep and put me to sleep. And I would relate to, the Patty thing is a good example. When she was being suspended or something, and the principal called us parents in. He called her, and Patty's sitting there, and he called in. This had to do with, I believe, Vietnam Peace Day or something, Moratorium Day or something. And And well, we had a lot of cases. See, with the Red Scare, everything. We had FBI coming, and everything else. But when just this little episode, sitting there with the principal, and he's starting to tell us how to be parents, and I think they got to Patty at that moment. It reflected me, okay, when I said, look, please do your job. If your job means you got to suspend Patty for 4 days or whatever, or kick her out or something, do it right, do it fairly, but don't for a moment think that I agree with you. I'm with her. I think she's fighting the right cause, And don't tell me how to be a parent. I think for a short time that it wasn't a long-term thing, but I think those kinds, I use that as a kind of thing.
Sure.
And there's some other occasions that I'm not sure they remember, but I do. With Beth, our little thing, she came to me and she said, how come I can't go to communion? She hadn't been confirmed yet. And, well, I said, Beth, I'm going to ask Pastor Bretcher, why in the world can't you go to communion? I can't think of any reason you should go to communion, other than we've always done it this way. And Bretcher's a very interesting creature. And he says, I really can't answer that. I will study it. And the next thing I know, about a month later, he comes out to the whole church, That is why today, in a manual, little kids can go to communion if their parents say okay. And that was a major change in the whole church body. I mean, all caused by Beth asking the question, and her daddy doesn't know and doesn't let it stop at that. She deserves an answer. And Bresh is the kind of guy that he's a biblicist, and if he can show me the answer, he'll find it. He couldn't find any answer, so he changes things. It's that kind of thing. It wasn't. And then don't forget, my father was there.
When was your dad there?
Well, he died in 76, so he was there maybe 72 to 76, something like that. And now they saw
4 years.
Huh?
4 years.
About that, I think. I don't know. And I had Gloria Keller as a nurse come in and give him a shower every morning, but 3 mornings a week. I started to make it 4. I don't get credit for this too much from Lloyd. I did it, okay? I would empty his bag and give him a shower and wipe his ass and everything else every morning. 3 to 4 mornings a week, okay? And, but we would also, at least every supper time, eat together, and Papa's there. And I'd have devotions, which were not spectacular. But it was a scene that I'm sure had some impact on the kids.
Sure. I'm not.
No, I'm trying to say my presence was not a time thing. It was, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They knew I was there.
There's. I mean, I understand. Your presence in your children's lives is often. It includes also the things you do in the world.
Very much
that they look to and they see. And so it's not a question meant to raise defenses, but to think about, we each make certain kinds of compromises in our lives. And I was just thinking about that one. It's something that I mean, Patty shared with you in some way. She doesn't stay overnight in Chicago very often, but she's split by that and has some of the same things. Yet the kids obviously, I think, take from her life I mean, she's not an ordinary.
Yeah, oh, I understand fully.
You know, they learn from her by seeing what she does, and from me too. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I mean, all of us.
Well, I think it's scary. There's no way in the world Olivia and Susanna are going to be able to live with a man out of wedlock and walk away. Anyhow, it's time to quit in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I think we ought to continue this because what I did with my time in Chicago is not unimportant. I don't think. Okay. Tomorrow, I mean, I had one night a week, no credit, no grades, no anything, volunteer session. Students that average somewhere between 20 and 30 students coming, giving up a night in Chicago to come to the office where I slept and held forth. And I had every Jew in the program come for some reason or another. And I think every lesbian in the program for some reason or another. Don't ask me why. But those folks were valuable to me. How they heard their questions, their comments. I might have said this to you recently, but I'd like to end here right now. But probably after war and poverty, the other thing that has most affected my life, I'm leaving Lori out. She transcends it all. Has most affected my life has been the fact that the students I have been with are all special students. Almost every single urban studies student for 20 years had to fight their faculty advisor, fight their parents. Why don't you go to Florence? Why don't you go to Cambridge? You know, and faculty advisor says the same thing. Parents say the same thing. I don't want you to go to Chicago. They had to want to come to the city. And it goes for the off-campus program too. They were special students. They made some risky choices. There's a choice again. They made choices. They lost time on their rat race. I really believe that that relationship, and I had it on a heavy volunteer group and individual basis. I got one letter out of nowhere, 8 years after I last saw this student from Vernon, California or something. A little note and $1,000 check. You know that? And she said, the only prize that I've ever had that would really take time to have breakfast or beer at night or anything. See, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just that I had things every night scheduled. One needs to be there when you're with 20, 18-year-olds in a strange land. And I mean, I don't say anything other than common sense for the most part. And the other night at Tony's, every Monday night we go to Tony's, you know, the Rass and Ludwig's and the Schaefer's. And here comes this blonde, and I forgot. I knew her with her husband. She's a 2-year-ago graduate of VU. I had her in my freshman. I taught freshman seminar here. I taught.
Yeah.
And building at, she was building at 360 Locust
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the class. And she said, I just want to say, here's these profs. I just want to say your class was the only one that taught me anything in all my 4 years of college. Did y'all hear that? So that's intriguing to me. You know, I mean, it's not this, it's just intriguing. Here's I get $1,000 check, and it's just, the brilliance is really, I mean, I don't have a PhD. I've never researched anything in my life. You know, it's just common sense in an absurd world, all I can say. And taking time. And when I say taking time, that has to be at the right time. And the special students, that is number one with me. I don't think if I taught just political science 101 or something like that, that would be it. I don't think that would be it at all. These students had made a choice. In every case, for all my teaching years, I made a choice. And the way football's that way too. Especially when you're not getting scholarships or anything when I taught. Get their ass beat every night.
Well, you know, and it's not so unusual for me to understand because education is not about facts. And most professors worry about how many facts.
Without a computer, you can't take a course.
You know, it's I heard somebody, and I probably told you this before, describe the educational system, the theory of education. Some people treat it like the student is the vessel and the professor is the pitcher, and he's filling the vessel with knowledge. You know, and others treat it like the workplace, whereas, yeah, I'm kind of the supervisor here, but how are we going to get this work done? And it's you, students, who have to do the work, and I'm here to, you know, give you some tools, some knowledge.
Well, I'm there to have something to say, and Paulo Freire's meant a lot to me. Student, teacher, student, and that's another subject. But how I dealt with grades, I think, is incredible.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree with you, and I know some of that, but we can talk about it again.
But
well, the other thing is,
excuse me, but we're in a world of process and group dynamics, which I hate. And I'm not against process and group dynamics, but the making a god out of it. Everybody's got to say something. Everybody's got to equal time and all that stuff. And I can bring them all out. I mean, no content at all. You know, I take them seriously, and I put something on the table that I'm not there to waste their time. I mean, I'm supposed to know something, and it's never neutral. Never neutral.
well, that's exactly the point I was gonna say is that. You, I'm sure, don't come to the classroom without a set of values. You don't pretend that you're teaching the objective, you know, here's this and here's that, here's the objective, and I don't have an opinion here, I'm putting it all out, you know, in an objective fashion. That's all bullshit. Everybody has a perspective. And the ones that I mean, it's like Richard Stiff. I learned a lot from Richard Stiff because Richard Stiff brings his whole value system into the classroom.
Yeah. Well,
he is a full human being, and he puts it out there, and you can react to it. You can, you know, bounce off of it. He'll argue with you, but he cares about what he thinks. And,
Bill Summers, whose wife's a well-known opera singer, and so forth,
yeah,
and who supported us a lot. You know.
yeah.
He was in my course at boiling. And I'm just using this because there are many other cases like this on what you're talking about. One day you said, yeah, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. You know? And I called him afterwards. And I won't go into detail. What I'm trying to say is, how many students can go to their profs when most of them think it's bullshit and say it's bullshit?
Yeah.
That says something already about what you're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My students have always been able to call bullshit bullshit, and I'm proud of that.
Sure.
Because you would never do that with the average prof that's neutral and so on.
Mm-hmm.
You'd never do it. You wouldn't even need to, I guess.
Well, it's so much bullshit that you know it's not even worth debating.
Because you don't know who you're hitting anyhow. He's neutral.
That's right. That's right. All right. Next week. Oh, I gotta pee. Back. Okay.